So again, thank you for joining us, everyone. Our guest speaker today is Tia Brisco, and she is a licensed marriage and family therapist, as well as a corporate mental wellness specialist, and she's passionate about supporting the mental health of both employees and organizations. Tia specializes in grief and loss, major life transitions, first responders, and work-life balance. Tia obtained her MS in marriage and family therapy from California State University, Northridge, and is obtaining a doctorate in organizational psychology. She has been featured in various media outlets, including Voyage Magazine, Shout Out LA Magazine, Bold Journey Magazine, and most recently in 2023, the Canvas Rebel Magazine. So again, I'm very happy to have Tia here with us. And Tia, whenever you are ready.
All right. Thank you so much, Carly. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I am so excited to be here with you all, sharing this topic that is very much near and dear to my heart. It is an honor that you all joined me today. Yes, I see son. I love it. Yes, it is. It's super honor for me to be able to share this with you and present all this information, and hopefully it's going to be helpful. Again, my name is Tia Brisco, licensed marriage and family therapist. I hone from the wonderful world of Las Vegas, Nevada, by way of California. And it is finally warming up here, but the wind is about to blow us away. So if you hear some random banging in my background, just know the wind is coming for us today. So it is super nice outside, though, as far as the weather. So I always like to ask before I start my trainings, I have a really important question to ask you all. And, if you want to answer it in the chat, please feel free to do so. But I got to know, what are you all drinking today? Are we on our third, fourth, fifth, sixth cups of coffee? I mean, it is around 3 o'clock here on the West Coast. So have we made it there yet? Are we still on a coffee kick? Are we now officially in like the lunchtime drinks? I'm drinking water for now, but I had a root beer earlier because I was like, I need some kind of caffeine to get me by today. Okay, perfect. So I see a Monster. We got water and tea. Still on the coffee kick, keeping calm with the chamomile. I know that's right. Water. Someone said I can't hang with caffeine after noon. I love it. Someone said I wish I had coffee. Vietnamese iced coffee, and it's not meeting your expectation. That makes me sad. Just go ahead and restart again. You don't have to. Gold pea sweet tea, beautiful. Transitioning to your anti headache pro sleep. I might need to know what that is because I get migraines. So you can share the deets in there if you want to. Water and tea. I see lots of water. Very good. Staying hydrated. That's part of your mental health too. Someone said they are craving a frappe right now. Look, go get your frappe. Who's stopping you? Y'all are adults. That's the best part about adulting is no one can stop you, right? I love it. Just H2O for now. I love it. I love it. Well, again, I want you all to get comfortable today. We're going to talk all about diversity and, core calm with L-theanine. Okay, perfect. L-theanine is actually really good too. So I love that. But we're going to talk all about just diversity and how to support diversity. And specifically because it is Black History Month, we're going to talk about diversity in terms of Black employees and supporting our employees that identify as Black or African American, Caribbean. We'll talk about that soon. But again, I want to just give you all some information. Like Carly said earlier, I'm actually getting a doctorate degree in this. And before you all clap, this thing is driving me crazy. So just, hold off on your claps. I'll come back after it's over. And then, because I'm ramming my head through the wall, everyone is like, yeah, congratulations. And I'm like, no, don't clap for me yet. Give me a couple months and then come back for me. I'll come back after I get the doctorate and then we'll clap for there. But this is actually the study of focus in my doctorate dissertation, specifically the effects of discrimination on the mental health of Black women in their jobs. And so I wanted to gather all of this information that I've gotten. I interviewed 12 licensed therapists who work with these groups of people to get this information. And so I want to pass it on to you if you all are okay. I feel like it would be very helpful for you all. So please feel free during this presentation, if you have questions, thoughts, if you want to answer any of my questions, do not be afraid of the chat. I do not bite. I promise you I don't bite. I write on Fridays, but it's not Friday at all. So again, feel free to pop into the chat if you'd like to share your reactions. Whatever you feel comfortable doing is fine with me. What we do always ask is that we have what we call a brave and safe space. And a brave space is about being able to speak up, up, speak out, to share your experiences and feel safe to do so. We also want to make sure that we respect the experiences of other people. One thing we'll talk about today in this session is that empathy really comes with understanding that certain people have certain experiences that maybe we don't. And so again, we want to just recognize those experiences and provide support, listen, and again, share as much as we can with each other. And so, like I said, today's presentation is going to kind of more or less focus on Black employees. And I use the term Black loosely because, again, there are so many identifications out there, but we're going to focus on that word today as kind of like our foundational word. So are you all ready to get started? Go ahead and put an exclamation point in my chat. I got to make sure you all are awake. You know that, yeah, are y'all awake right now? I know the day is almost over. I do. I'm going to try to make this as fun as possible for you. Okay, I see. All right, I saw a yes in there. I love that. Yes, indeed. Okay, beautiful. Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and get started. And remember, this is brought to you by your Employee Assistance Program, and that's something I'm very, very passionate about. It's also something in my research that has been found to be extremely helpful for Black employees, but employees in general. So again, I want to remind you that we are here based on your EAP, your Employee Assistance Program. So please use them as a resource if you can. They're an amazing resource to have. All right, so I like to always start my presentations with quotes because I'm a big quote girl. If you look all over my house, there's quotes all over it. And I really, really, really like this quote by C-Dub. He's an author, writer, rapper. He said, "Being Black in America feels like running a race and someone keeps moving the finish line." And when I say that, and I read that to other Black Americans, they said something very similar, that, you know, there's always this extra work that feels like there has to be done, or extra proving themselves or changing themselves and not being able to be their most authentic selves, right? And so when we talk about being Black in America, we're also talking about being Black in the workplace and in your home and all of that. So I want you all to just kind of understand that when we're focusing on Black individuals today, this is the experience of a lot of different groups, right? This is not just the experience of one group. We have many, many, many marginalized groups out there for different reasons. And we want to acknowledge that there are experiences that they have that we may not ever be able to truly, fully understand. And that is okay. Right? So our agenda today is going to look a little bit like this. So I like to break this presentation up in two parts, if that's okay with you, because sometimes the second part can be a bit overwhelming because there's a lot of terms and things like that. So the first part, I want to strictly focus on diversity. I want to talk about what is diversity, what is unconscious privilege and unconscious bias and privilege. We're going to talk about the impact of discrimination on the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of Black employees. And then the second part is going to focus on supporting our Black employees as individuals, as organizations, and also if you identify as a Black employee, and again, I'm using Black as a foundational word, how to support yourself as well. Because I think sometimes when we do these trainings, and you all can tell me if you've ever experienced this, a lot of the times we talk about how other people can support our different groups of marginalized individuals, but we don't ever talk about them and how they process through the world. So I want to make sure to add that piece in there if that's okay with you all. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, I told you I like quotes. This is probably the only quote that you all are going to get today. The last one you're going to get today. I really enjoy this quote from Denzel Washington. Do y'all know who Denzel Washington is? Do y'all know who that is? Mm-hmm. I see the happy faces. Yes, indeed. Okay, as long as y'all know who he is. But if you've never seen Denzel before, he is a award-winning actor. He is one of the most prominent Black actors, but actors of all time. So again, huge fan of his, but I really, really liked this quote from him. He said, "I am very proud to be Black, but Black is not all that I am. That's my cultural, historical background, my genetic makeup. But it's not of all who I am, nor is it the basis from which I answer every question." And that's something I like to remind people a lot when we have these types of conversations. Yes, I am a Black woman. My identity is that of a Black woman, very proud Black woman. I love being Black. If you were to ask me if I would want to be anything else, I would say no, because I love my culture. I love my heritage. I love who I am. Very proud of being a Black woman. And I am also a ton of other things in my life, right? I'm an ex-singer. I used to be a teacher. I am a dancer. There's so many other things that make me me, that being Black is part of who I am. It's not everything that I am. It's not all of who I am. I don't answer questions specifically from being a Black woman, but it is part of who I am because it makes up my experiences in this world. And so, again, when we're talking about diversity, we have to understand that we as people are all different, right? We all come in different shapes, different sizes. We have different backgrounds. Even if you identify as Black, we are not the same, right? So, again, when we talk about supporting our Black employees or marginalized groups of employees, we have to understand that every single person is unique, and diversity is what makes us all, connected and all, the best that we can be. So I'm sure you're probably asking, well, Tia, what is diversity? Well, I'm going to give you all the Webster Dictionary version of it, but I'm going to give you all my version of it in a few minutes because, I'm a millennial, so we always like to change things, okay? Everybody's like, yeah, that's a millennial. We sure do. But diversity, as defined by the Webster Dictionary, is the range of human differences, including but not limited to race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, age, social class, physical ability, attributes, religious or ethical value systems, national origin, and political beliefs. That is such a mouthful. Let's go here, actually. Let me show you, because I'm sure we got some visual learners out here. Do we have any visual learners where you like to see it instead of like hearing it? Or, okay, so my visual learners, this is for you. So when we talk about diversity, right, we tend to get stuck here, right? What we call internal dimensions. So that's age, physical ability, appearance, personality, sex, ethnicity, sexual orientation, race, which those are all very, very much important, right? We have to function in those places because that's who we are. But I like to expand today your belief of what diversity is. Let me ask you, how many of you have dogs? Do I have any dog parents out there? I have a 17-year-old Lhasa Chihuahua mix. I've had her since she was born. She is currently downstairs sleeping because she does not like the sound of my voice. So, okay, multiple dogs. Okay. We got some dog parents out there. Love it. Maybe you have many dogs. No discrimination on the type of dogs. I have an affinity for pit bulls, though, just so y'all know. That's probably going to be my next dog, is a pit bull, because my dog is old. She's 17, so she's old. She'll be 18 this year. All right. How many of you have cats? I know some of you already put into the chat that you have cats. Okay. Oh, you have 4 pit bulls. I'm so jealous. I love me a good pit bull. My best friend has 2, and I'm like, I want to take them both home. Okay. So we got a couple cat people out there. How many of you have other type of pets? So like lizards, birds, maybe you have a monkey, fish, anything like that. Your husband. Yeah, that I do understand. Okay. I love it. Somebody else put their kids in there too. Beautiful. Okay, so some of chickens. Okay, absolutely. A bunny. I just saw a bunny that lost his little leg and he's living his best life. One of my friends is a vet and he adopted him and it was so cute. Okay, lizard. Okay, perfect. So I just want to point out that this is diversity in itself, right? Some of you are dog parents, some of you are cat parents, some of you are lizard parents, right? But again, we don't tend to think of diversity as, okay, the animals that I have. How many of you are grandparents? Do I have any grandparents out there? Yes, I know I have parents out there, but I am team grandparent to my soul. So where are my grandparents at? Okay. Hey, grandparents. Okay, you're a grandparent of 5. All right. First time grandparents. Congratulations. I hope that you are enjoying your promotion. That's very good. Maybe soon. Okay. I don't have kids yet. So maybe a couple years. Like I said, I'll come back after and I'll be a doctor and have kids for you all. Okay. 11 grandchildren. Oh, you're winning. I think 11 is the top number that we have here. Again, that's another element of diversity, right? So when we look at diversity, I want you all to kind of stretch your thinking, because anything and everything can be diversity. Even if you have a Black employee, They may be completely diverse. Maybe they don't have kids. Maybe they have grandchildren. Maybe they come from the West Coast or the East Coast or the South, right? Again, all of these things make us who we are. So my goal today is to have you stretch your thinking of what diversity is from just these to these as well. That could be your income. That could be if you're in the military, a veteran, or maybe you have family members. It could be a geographic location. Like I said, most of you are here on the West Coast or the West side of the world with me, but some of you may have been born and raised in Ohio. I was raised in Ohio for half my life, or Detroit, or New York, or whatever that might be. Or maybe you are sober, or you've overcome an addiction and you are in recovery. That can make us diverse. Maybe you have a personal trauma history. That makes you diverse. Or you can have institutional diversity. So maybe you've been at your job for 30 plus years. Or maybe you are now a director, or you are a CEO of a business. Again, when we talk about diversity, we don't want to just get stuck, because when we get stuck, we start putting people in boxes, right? We start saying, well, this is what you are and this is all of what you are. But when we're talking about supporting marginalized groups, we have to understand there are more things that make us similar than they do different, right? So as a Black woman, yes, I am Black and maybe you are Japanese, but maybe we both own dogs, right? So again, when we're talking about diversity, we have to understand that there are elements that make us unique, and there are also elements that connect us. And that is what I want you to take home today is whatever employee you're supporting, whether it's a Black employee, a Latinx employee, an AAPI employee, all of us have unique differences, but we are also very much connected. Do you have any questions about the diversity wheel? Is that helpful for you all to see it this way? Give you a little extra kind of umph in what it kind of looks like? Okay, good. I love the little reactions. It's very rare that people do reactions for me. So that warms my little heart. So thank you all so much. Beautiful. I see. And again, if you have any questions, comments, whatever that might be, someone said I'm going to share that visual. It's a great, all you have to do is just type in diversity will, and you'll be able to pull up, and there's tons and tons and tons. There's like many, many more of these. And that's diversity in itself. Some of you are audio learners, some of you are visual learners, some of you are tactile learners, a mix of all of them. So again, diversity can literally be anything and everything. And that is the cool part. But what happens when diversity goes wrong? Well, there are two things that tend to happen when we have conversations about diversity. And these two are probably the most sensitive words when it comes to diversity. As soon as I say the word unconscious bias or privilege, people are like, oh my goodness, yeah, I don't have privilege. That makes me feel like a bad person to say I have privilege. But what I want you all to understand about these two words specifically is everyone has biases and everyone has privilege. So let me break these down a little bit. So unconscious bias is kind of like an automatic preference or stereotype based on your experiences and the behaviors that you utilize in the world. So I didn't really learn what unconscious bias was until I read the book Spare by Prince Harry. Anyone ever read that book by Prince Harry, Princess Diana? You know what? I'm sorry, I said that wrong. The Princess Diana's son. He wrote a book called Spare, probably about a year or so ago, year or two ago. Now, mind you, I am a Princess Diana stan. Like when I tell you I love the Princess Diana, literally they had a whole like exhibit here in Vegas. I got up early. I went to VIP. I got me a little cup, everything. I love the Princess Diana, like the Princess Diana. So of course, when her son comes out with a book, I'm gonna read it, right? Literally, really, really good book. And I would highly recommend for those of you who are audio learners, listen to the audio book because his voice is very soothing. Like he has a very, very grounding, soothing voice. Excuse me. But one thing that he talked about in the book was unconscious bias. And what he said is, you know, it wasn't until I married somebody who was outside of my normal box, like my normal group of people, did I realize that there was so much bias outside of the walls of the palace. He said it wasn't until I had to engage with people that were outside of myself did I realize that some of the things that I had learned or came to believe is true were not actually true for other people, right? So let me give you an example of unconscious bias that literally drove me up the wall. So I have a friend who doesn't have animals. She doesn't have animals at all. No dogs, no cats, no fish, no nothing. So one day she came into my house and she goes, Tia, your house is really clean. And I'm like, is my house supposed to be dirty? And she was like, no, you have a dog. And I always thought that people who had dogs were dirty. And I was like, what? I was so confused because I'm like, wait a second. Like, why do you assume that? But it was based off of her experience. She doesn't have a dog. She doesn't engage with people who normally have dogs. So her assumption is that people with dogs who are dirty. Now, let me ask you all, for those of you who have animals, are y'all dirty at all? I'm guessing probably not. Yeah, no. Okay. Not at all, right? Someone said hair everywhere. Now, you may have a lot of hair with your animal, but again, a lot of people clean that up every night. I sweep my floors every single night, right? Because no one wants a stinky house. Absolutely. But to her and her belief system, people who had animals were filthy. And that is what unconscious bias is. It is making assumptions based on your limited knowledge of who those people are and going forth and using those stereotypes, right? Another big stereotype I hear is about veterans, for example, or people who are unhoused, right? They say, well, everybody who is unhoused is on drugs, right? That's a big bias that I hear just across the board, especially living here in Las Vegas, where we have a really high unhoused population, right? Someone said dirty is a perspective. My idea of dirty might be different than someone else's dirty. Absolutely. But again, if you're judging someone based on your belief system, you're engaging in an unconscious bias, right? So again, when we talk about unconscious bias, these are beliefs that we have within the scope of who we are, right? Not what the outside world is or what anyone else is going through or whatever that might be. These are beliefs and judgments that are based on what we see and what we know. And so that's why I said everybody has unconscious bias on something. And again, it may not be that you experience that thing every day, but when you see it, you're like, oh, there's a little bit of judgment there. And so when we talk about our Black employees, this is one of the main things that come up. And we'll talk about stereotyping and things like that in a second. But now I want to talk about the P word, because I feel like when people hear the word privilege, they immediately get uncomfortable, right? That word can be very uncomfortable sometimes. So I want to also note that all of us have privilege. How many of you are inside of a house right now, or just somewhere safe? It could be your house, your office, somewhere with a door, right? And a roof. How many of you are? Okay, so a lot of you, pretty much all of you are here. Or maybe you're outside or like at the park or something like that, but you have some place that you can go to that you can call home, right? There are people out there that don't. So being able to say, I have a home, or I have a safe place to go to, or I have, somewhere safe to go to when I get off of work, or whatever that might be, some people don't have that same thing. So when we talk about privilege, we have to recognize that privilege is something that we all have. And sometimes it can negatively influence people, or it can positively influence people. Another privilege that we have right now, presently, is breathing, right? Especially over the last 4 years, a lot of us have lost people and who don't have the opportunity to live their best life or to even breathe. So when we're talking about privilege, I don't want you all to be sensitive to that word, because we all have privileges. The question is, how do you use your privilege? Are you using it for good, or are you using it for evil, right? And so for my auditory learners, privilege is advantages or benefits that group hold primarily due to social identity or background that results in systemic advantages and opportunities that others may not have access to. And like I said, we all have privileges, whether it is, getting an education, having a good job, right? All of those things are considered privilege. Now, one thing I want to note about privilege is when you talk about your marginalized communities, yes, a lot of us have privileges, but there are also things that have happened historically that have made certain privileges either harder for us to obtain, or they have made it so that we can't obtain them at all. And so when we're talking about privilege, privilege is more prominent in what we call I don't want to say the oppressive groups, but the groups that tend to hold them more often. So that is things like sexism, racism, heterosexism, all of those things is where privilege lies. Someone said, I have the privilege of citizenship just because I was born in the US, right? Again, I'm glad you all are starting to see privilege, right? It is not a negative thing, but there are some people out there that utilize their privileges to harm other people. And that is where your racism comes in. That's where your sexism comes in, your ableism comes in. So again, I just want to note this for you all because these two words can be very sensitive, but we have to talk about them when we talk about supporting other people. Does that make sense for you all? Yeah? Any questions coming up about bias or privilege? Any comments you all want to share? Someone said, yes, privileges can be consciously and formally awarded and can be unconsciously and unofficially awarded. It's hard for people to see the latter. Okay, good. We have privilege in our own community. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, beautiful. I'm glad that everyone tends to like the dog connection. I was like, well, at least she gave me a good example to use. So let's kind of jump into Black employees because, like I said, this has been my area of focus for the last 2 years as I wrote my dissertation, as I'm writing my dissertation. And when I met with the therapists, so like I said, I interviewed 12 therapists of all different demographics, from Russian to Filipina to Black to Caucasian identifying. And all of them kind of gave me some of the same answers about challenges that they feel like Black employees face that they bring into therapy. So I'm going to give you 3 of the main ones. These are the top 3 across the board. If you've ever gotten a doctorate degree, that means that I hit saturation. So that made me very happy. But I want to describe these 3 to you all, if that's okay. Privileges is based on perspective and a person's outlook on life. Yes, and some of them are also institutionalized privileges and things like that. So there's kind of a two-sided space to that. One, yes, perspective does play a part in it, but there's also some things like institutionalized isms that we call that make it a little different. So for example, one institutionalized ism that I can think of is ableism. So how many of us are able to reach a counter without having any issue? How many of you are able to reach a counter without having any issue? You can walk up to the counter, you can touch the counter. There are people that struggle with counters, right? If they're too high, they're not going to be able, say they're in a wheelchair or maybe they have some kind of mobile issue, then they may not be able to reach the counters or access the counters, right? So again, these are institutional things that we don't always think of. So yes, it's half perspective, and it's also some institutional systemic things that we don't tend to think of because we're able to do those things or able to engage in those things and not have to worry about them like other people would, right? Does that make sense? When we talk about the difference between like perspective and institutional and systemic. Okay, perfect. Good, good, good. Beautiful. All right, so let's talk about some of the challenges that Black employees face because it is Black History Month, right? So I do want to note that as well, that it is Black History Month. Number one, the biggest one is discrimination. Now, all of this came from research over the last 5 years. So when we talk about discrimination, these are things that are still happening to this day that people are experiencing. Someone said, hence why I love the Habitat for Humanity's home building guide, which standardizes counter heights, door widths, and ground level construction for wheelchair users and people with other mobility issues. Right. So they're thinking, you know, again, using their privilege for good. So number one is discrimination. So in the research that we did over the last 2 years, one of the main things that we've seen is Black employees are least likely to get hired due to their names. So there is a research study out there. There's actually 2 that focuses on applying for jobs and getting interviews. And what they found is that Black employees who have particularly Black names, I'm air quoting if you can't see me, Black names are least likely to get interviews or get called back for jobs than those who have, for example, more white-facing names, if that makes sense. So for example, one of the examples that were used is someone named Keisha was less likely to get a job than someone named Sally or Hannah, right? Again, not knowing this person from, you know, the next person, it is the assumption that that is a Black facing name, if that makes sense. So we often see that there are some discrepancies when it comes to things like hiring, pay, and upward mobility. They say that Black employees are the least likely to get promoted in their jobs, usually because they are often seen as aggressive, disrespectful, or lazy. And again, this is all coming from research. Aggressive, disrespectful, or lazy. So even if they have the skill set, the belief of what this Black employee is going to make it more difficult for them to get promoted, or for them to move up in companies, or for them to be considered for higher pay. However, what we did find is that when Black employees were good at their roles, they were often rewarded with more work. They were told, you are so good at this, let me give you more work. And usually with that extra work, there was no recognition, and sometimes their work would be given to other people as if they did it. So again, when we talk about discrimination, right, we have to understand, someone said, tell me about it. We have to understand that these things are very subtle nowadays. So a lot of the times we're not going to know that it's happening unless a Black employee says that it's happening. But then we run the risk of being gaslighted. Well, it's not that bad. You'll be okay. It's not that bad. I don't know what you're talking about. They're so nice to me, right? So then Black employees start to question themselves. Am I just being sensitive about this, or am I just, upset, or whatever that might be? In reality, they know what they are experiencing. They know their experience, but a lot of times they are gaslighted into believing that, hey, your experience does not exist, or you're just feeling this and nobody else. And of course, if you're the only Black employee in your office, or in the work experience that you're engaging in, then yes, you're going to feel that way. So again, we have to recognize that while we may not have these experiences, other people do. And as a person, as a Black woman, I have had these experiences. So I speak from my own experience. Other things that have been found to be difficult for Black employees are interpersonal relationships, getting along with their supervisors, things like that, their coworkers. Someone said, go where you are celebrated, not tolerated. If they can't see the real value of you, it's time for a new start. That is one of the things that many of the therapists did say. And then this is a total flip to the top few, tokenism. So tokenism is defined as being the perfect or model employee of the marginalized group. So for example, you're not like other Black people. Like, I've dealt with other Black employees. You are actually really good at this job. Or you're not as loud as the other Black people here, right? These are all things that have been said to Black employees as a way to say, you are the token Black employee. We want everyone to act and think like you. Someone said, I don't think of you as Black. Absolutely. I've heard that before a lot of the time. Microaggressions. Let's go to number 2. So microaggressions are subtle forms of discrimination or stereotyping. So for example, my biggest and personal microaggression is this. I cannot tell you how many times I have had people walk up to me and put their hands in my hair and say, wow, you people are always changing your hair. Or how do you people do that? How long does it take? Right? How do you think I would feel, or anybody in that scenario would feel? Like I'm in a museum. Like something is wrong with me, that I don't meet a standard of practice. But yet you have, oh, someone said, your English is really good. You speak good English, right? And again, this is way past Black employees. This is all marginalized groups. I had someone say, my friend is she identifies as lesbian. And she dresses, she dresses how she dresses. She would be traditionally feminine, right? And someone came up to her and was like, you don't act like a lesbian. And she was like, how am I supposed to act, right? So again, there are tons of groups that experience this. I see this a lot with pregnant individuals. Somebody walking up to them and just touching their belly without permission. Anyone ever have that happen to them? Maybe you were pregnant and someone just walked up to you and put their hands on their belly. It basically is saying, hey, you're different. You're interesting. Let me touch you without permission. And microaggressions can be anything from the way that someone speaks to recognizing where they come from, whatever that might be, right? Again, and a lot of the times we're like, they're so subtle that we're like, why did that feel so uncomfortable to me, right? It didn't feel fair. And a lot of the times our microaggressions are kind of phrased in a joke, right? Oh, I'm just joking with you, or, it's funny. But I can almost promise you that the people who have experienced those microaggressions have probably experienced them for most of their lives. They've probably been told that for most of their lives. So for them, they're just kind of like, okay, whatever, right? Someone said intrusive is a great way to phrase those type of experiences. Someone said literally happened to me today. It's not funny at all. It's not, right? Because the person who has experienced this probably experiences this pretty consistently. Where are you from, or what are you? Absolutely. Micro invalidations. I remember someone told me once, Tia, you're only a good trainer because people like you. And I'm like, okay, right? Not because I have the skills, not because, I'm good at what I do. It's because people like me, right? Those micro invalidations make all the hard work that you put in feel very minimized. And to come to say to somebody, oh, you're only good because of this, or, you only made it because of this, right? Or you're only there because of this. I remember one time my partner, he's a baseball coach. And I remember he came home, he was mad. And I was like, why are you mad? He was like, somebody told me that they only hired me as a baseball coach because they needed more Black coaches. And that hurt him because he loves the game of baseball, right? That's his passion. He worked hard to get there. But again, when people say these things, they don't realize the effect that they have on the people around them. So we have to be more conscious when we talk to people and how we're speaking to people. Even if we think it's hilarious to say, it may not be hilarious to them. We also have the exoticization. I can never say that word, but basically, the looking at the features, the saying, "Wow, you're really nice looking." Someone said in the chat, "What are you? You look so exotic," right? Again, the over exotification of Black employees or marginalized employees. And then, of course, assumed inferiority. One of the major stereotypes with Black employees is that they're lazy. Yeah, nowhere near, right? And then number 3, and this is what happens for Black employees, silencing. Have you all ever heard of the term code switching before? Anyone ever heard of that term? Okay. So code switching is in essence defined as switching the way that you speak, you dress, the way that you wear your hair, your dialect, things like that, in order to be safe in your environment. And we see this a lot with marginalized groups, hiding their authentic selves because they are fearful that if they express who they are, they're going to be judged, they're going to be called unprofessional, they're going to be told that they are not good enough, they're not worthy enough, or whatever that might be. So they hide. I once had a person, I did this training a couple of days ago, and someone said, I come from the South. She identified as Caucasian. And she said, I come from the South. She said, and I used to speak with a heavy Southern drawl, a heavy Southern dialect. She said, I had to learn how to change my dialect because when I would go into places and apply for jobs, they would think that I was dumb because I came from the South. Right? Think about how that feels to have to go and change the very pieces of you that make you beautiful in order to protect yourself. But a lot of our employees, our Black employees, our marginalized employees, do it every single day. And that leads to things of isolation, lack of safety, and minimization. And so when we talk about the effects of workplace discrimination, right? Someone said, I pressed and relaxed my hair for years. Now I love my natural curls, but I still flat iron my hair for interviews, right? And then there's a piece of that, right? There's a little bit of that internalized, like, how are people going to view me, right? We get that all the time. And so before I get into how do we support our Black employees, I just want to remind you of the brain because I think sometimes we forget that our brain is one of the most interesting parts of our body. So, can I give y'all a little bit of neurobiology today? Just a little bit. I promise I won't go crazy. I know it's almost 4 o'clock. Just a tad, just a little bit. Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. I just want to make sure. So, can y'all come for a walk with me? Y'all want to come to Las Vegas and come for a walk with me? We can go to the Red Rocks. They're really nice. They're really pretty. So, if you ever come to Las Vegas, come to the Red Rocks. But let's go take a walk. So, imagine you and I are taking a walk and we're minding our business, right? We're having a good time. And all of a sudden, you turn around and there's a mountain lion behind you. What do? And I'm following you. So, don't ask me what to do. What are we doing? It's looking at you. I'm looking at you. You're looking at it. What are we doing here? Are we running? Are we crying? Are you going to feed me to the mountain lion? Because that comes up a lot. Okay, someone said stand your ground and yell, make yourself big. You're going to take off running. Someone said do not turn your back to it. You're probably going to push me to the look, I have accepted my fate. Someone said panic on the inside, accept my fate is lion dinner. You're supposed to get big. Yes, technically that's what you're supposed to do. Okay, you're going to accept your fate too. All right, well, that's what it is. So the reason I ask you this question is not because I love mountain lions. I come from California. We love P22. If you don't know what P22 is, I highly suggest if you need a pick-me-up in your day, read about P22. But the reason I ask you this question is because I need to know how your brain functions. Because the brain's job in the body is to protect its human being. And it protects you from everything: physical, emotional, spiritual, mental. And so what happens is when you are presented in elements where you do not feel safe, your brain is going to go into protection mode. Now, the problem about the brain is that when it goes into protection mode, it goes into protection mode. So you may see things like hypervigilance, right? That feeling of uneasiness. How many of you have ever been in a car accident and when you went back out to drive after, you were like looking over your shoulder, you kind of slowed down, maybe you stopped every so often, like you were just really tight? That's hypervigilance, right? So what we have found is that Black employees tend to have high levels of hypervigilance because they never know what they're going to do or say that's going to make them look unprofessional or that could cost them their job, if we're being honest. Things like insomnia and hypersomnia, having trouble falling asleep, staying asleep, or sleeping too much, which is hypersomnia. One of the main things that came up amongst the therapists was that Black individuals tend to engage in substance use and abuse more as an effect or as a result of their experience with discrimination. They have difficulty regulating their emotions. And part of being gaslighted is not knowing if your emotions are true to form, right? If you're telling me it's not, but I'm feeling like it is, how am I supposed to regulate myself, right? They tend to have high levels of depression and anxiety. Those were the two that were the most reported. Helplessness, hopelessness. But one of the main ones that we see with Black employees is numbness. They have done this for so long and they are so exhausted that they're just like, I don't feel anything about it anymore. Right? And someone brought up the fact of high blood pressure. What we have found and doctors have found in research is that Black individuals or marginalized individuals in general tend to produce high levels of cortisol and adrenaline, which are the survival hormones. You are not supposed to produce cortisol and adrenaline every single day. You're only supposed to do it when you are in a heightened protective space. So again, cortisol and adrenaline can lead to things like strokes, heart attacks, just all of the things across the board. And the reason I'm so passionate about this was because of my mom. My mom faced discrimination in her job, and she ultimately ended up having a heart attack at work. So when we talk about the importance of this is why I am drilling in for you all to understand that this is so important and it affects the lives of other people. But you know what? It's probably better for me to show you than to tell you. So let's take a look at what somebody's life might be at on a normal basis. I am going to stop the presentation for a second. As I stop this and prep this video, do you all have any questions at all that are coming up for you? Anything that's coming to your mind, anything that's coming to your hearts? We are open for all of it. Just remember, we're going to stay as respectful as possible to everyone here in the group. And I thank you all for being so open just to talk about this, because this is super duper important to me and others. Now, this video does not have a whole lot of sound. It's literally just a piano in the back. So if you can't hear the sound, that's okay. It's literally the visuals that are the most important. So let's look a day in the life of someone who identifies as a Black man. No, there's no audio in this one, just visual. So that was a P&G commercial that came out probably a couple years ago. But I just thought it was so, like someone said, profound when you think about all this stuff that this man had to go through, all these looks that he was getting, all the people who were kind of like, oh, we don't want to be around him. And yet he's still living in his greatness as a Black employee and as a Black judge at that. And again, as much as we talk about these things that are happening, someone just said it happened to me at a Starbucks this morning. These things still happen all the time. And even though they're subtle, it doesn't mean that they don't exist. And so we just want to acknowledge that for people, that these are so many things that affect the lives of Black employees. And so, again, thank you all for the chat for that one. Again, if you want to share in the chat, you're more than welcome to. But let me get down to the nitty gritty on how to support our Black individuals, because I think what I always tell people, I want to educate you first on the experiences so that when we talk about supporting, it makes more sense. So let's start off with you as an individual. Maybe you don't identify as a Black employee or whatever that might be. How do you support, right? Number one, we have to recognize bias and privilege. We have to recognize that there are so many people in this world who have different experiences than us. And some of those experiences are really wonderful, and some of them are not good, they're not helpful, and they're not safe for people. We have to recognize that, yes, there are certain things in this world that not everyone has to experience. And again, that's part of the nature of the beast, right? We have to understand that all is not equal or equitable. When I think about equality, people say we want equality in the workplace or we want equality. But to me, equality is actually not enough. Equity. I can never say these words right. They don't come out the way I want them to. Equity is what we need. So equality is about everyone having a seat at the table. You hear everyone say like everyone should have a seat at the table. But equity is about everyone being able to participate at the table, to sit at the table, to eat the food that they need at the table, right? When we talk about equity, we're not just talking about giving someone a job and saying, hey, you work here and we celebrate diversity, or we only celebrate Black History Month during Black History. Equity is understanding that Black history is made all the time, every single day, right? So when we talk about equality, That's great, but what we want is equity. We want everyone to be their best, most authentic self, no matter where they are and who they are with. You want to identify areas where discrimination every single day. You want to identify the areas where discrimination and stereotyping might occur. I always tell people, I don't care what you do in public. That's my big thing. I don't care what you do in public. I don't care how much you say you are here for the movement in public. I don't care. What I do care about is who you are in private. If you cannot be the same person in private that you are in public, I don't need you rallying around me as an ally. A true ally is someone that can stand up for injustice in any scenario without fear or worry that someone is going to look at them different or treat them different. If you're calling yourself an ally, I care more that you're an ally in private with your family, your friends, whomever that might be. So identify the places where this is happening. And if you see something, say something. That's the biggest thing. It's like being at the airport. If you see something, say something. Because if you don't say something, I'm going to assume that you are complacent, and complacent is just as bad as the person that is doing it. Okay. Someone said, that's right. I want to know what you're doing and saying about me and us at your dinner table. Absolutely. Seek knowledge, but do not expect to be taught. I always tell people it's like dealing with people who have gone to war. You don't go to them and tell them, hey, teach me about what you went through in war. It's the same thing. PTSD is a real thing for your Black employees and a lot of your marginalized employees. There is too much knowledge out there to seek to get educated. Now, if people are open to educating you, wonderful. That is great, great, awesome. But social media is a big thing. There are books. I'm going to give you all my favorite books at the end of this presentation. There's too much out there for you to be educated. Go out there and get the knowledge, seek the knowledge, and don't assume that you know everything, right? Someone said Google is free. Validate experiences, do not minimize them. If someone is saying, hey, I felt this way about this, don't say, well, maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe you're just assuming. If they felt that, that means that that is something that hit their nervous system. Validate them. I hear you. I can see why that would be difficult. I can see why you would be frustrated about that. Sometimes validation, just acknowledging that my stuff exists, can go a long way. And like I said, speak up and stand up. Complacent is not standing up for people. It's not doing anything. So, and one more thing I want to add to this list is when people say, I don't see color, please don't say that to other people. It is okay to see color. It is not okay to treat me differently because of my color. It is okay to see this beautiful Black girl with the big hair and the full lips and all of the things that make me beautiful as a Black woman, but it is not okay for you to treat me different because I am a Black woman. You can see color and still treat the person as an actual human being. So that's the color blindness is something I'm like, oh, we don't say that now. All right, let's talk about your organization's leadership. This is really for you, HR. This is for you. Number one, you want to review your policies and procedures to ensure that everyone is being thought about. When you're building a new office space, when you are engaging as to what ERGs you want, make sure that you're reviewing those policies and procedures, your hiring policies, your outreach policies. Too many organizations come to me and say, well, Tia, nobody has applied for the job of color, so I don't know what to tell you. Are you outreaching to people of color in spaces where people of color are? Are you going to HBCUs and outreaching for these positions? Or are you just saying, well, no one is applying for these, so I can't do anything about that? We have a responsibility to outreach properly. So organizations, leadership, that's your job. That's where you stand. Open the space for suggestion and not assumption. Again, people are always so excited when Black History Month comes, but how do you know that your employees feel the same way about Black History Month or that they view it the same way? Again, it's often okay to ask for suggestion and not assume that you're doing the right thing, right? Not go with the tide. Allow space for diverse voices. Employee resource groups are always very, very helpful. I've seen those popping up a lot over the last few years. They're super helpful where employees can come together, they can fellowship with each other, and also help build diversity in the company. This one is a big one. A lot of companies say, well, Tia, we have a no tolerance policy for discrimination. But yet your protocols don't do anything when someone is being discriminated against. We can't say we have a zero tolerance for discrimination, but then when it happens, we're like, well, it's fine. We have to uphold those protocols and say, hey, if this happens, this is going to create your culture, right? So if we allow certain things to happen, no matter who's being discriminated against, that's going to be your culture, because no one is going to say, well, they're not going to do anything to me. I can say it and I'm just going to get away with it, right? But when we have protocols and procedures that go with that no, there's zero tolerance policy, it makes it easier for us to uphold the standards of the culture we're trying to build. Let employees tell you what they need, kind of like that first one. Ensure that resources are readily available. Every single one of your employees should know about your employee assistance program. And the cool thing about the EAP is that there are diverse individuals and they are able to support, and it is 100% confidential. No one is going to know that you are using the benefit. I repeat, no one is going to know. And then don't make it a moment, make it culture. Do not just celebrate Black voices during Black History Month. Do not just celebrate AAPI versus during AAPI month. Do not just celebrate LGBTQ plus voices during Pride Month. Make it culture. This is who we celebrate. We celebrate everyone, no matter who they are or where they come from. It's not just a moment, it is culture. And then my Black employees, this is for you. Your experience is valid. You have experienced this. This is real life. It is valid. You are valid. Your experience is valid. You can limit your exposure to these things. I know, especially in the Black community, we want to just keep abreast of everything and get all this knowledge, but your exposure could also be traumatizing you. We call that vicarious trauma. And not just for Black employees, all groups of people who have experienced trauma in terms of like cultural or race related trauma, you can't be re traumatized. Seek mentorship and support. Your mentor doesn't have to look like you. Find someone that can be on your side and support you in getting to the next level of your life. Recognize the signs in your bodies. Black individuals are more likely to report signs of anxiety and depression in their body. So when your body starts to take the hit, that might mean something else is starting to happen. Find space for self-care, both inside and outside of work. This is my favorite quote for everybody. Define your worth and add tax. You have the skill set, you have the education, you've done the work, you've put in the work. You need to add tax to who you are. Don't let anyone tell you what you are. Be who you are based on who you're becoming. Ask for what you need. Keep your boundaries intact. If you're getting overloaded with work, say can't do it, right? I say we got to be like toddlers. Sometimes we have to know how to say no. And then last but not least, and this is for all of you, I don't care if you're a Black employee, if you're brown, yellow, purple, I don't care. You are valuable, you are worthy, and you are deserving. I don't care who you are. You are valuable. You are worthy. You are meant to be here for a reason. So please, for those of you who are struggling with your mental health, whatever that might be, you are valuable, you are worthy, and you are here for a reason. And so having a diverse workforce in closing is just the first step. You have to ensure they feel that they belong and are heard, and is the next. So again, when we support diversity, we're not just supporting it, we are perpetuating it so that other people will come and continue to support that movement. And so the bottom line, knowledge is power. Knowledge and awareness is power, recognizing that these things exist, but also knowing you can be on the good side of the line or the not so good side of the line. It's not just about inclusion, it's about equity and belonging. We all can support our Black employees or all of our marginalized employees with validation and self-awareness. It is okay that you may come from this presentation uncomfortable. I didn't come here to make you all comfortable. I came here to give you all information, knowledge, and to validate some of your experiences. And the last thing is empathy is the foundation. When we recognize that, no, we may not have had a similar experience, but others out there are, we're able to approach people with love and compassion. And so I know we're about rounding up time. I just want to see if there are any questions at all. Any questions coming up? I want to leave you all today with my favorite books of all times and supporting just Black individuals in general. I know Why the Cage Bird Sings, so you want to talk about Grace, Citizen, The Fire This Time, White Rage, How to Be Anti-Racist, When They Call You a Terrorist, Between the World and Me. Who Doesn't Kill You Makes You Blacker, Heavy, Eloquent Rage, and then my personal favorite, Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria? Those are a few of my favorite books for those of you who like to read. Again, yeah, Heavy is very, very heavy, but it is really good. So again, if any of you have any questions, I'll stay for a few minutes, but I want to thank you all so very, very much. I'm actually going to close the chat so you all can screenshot it if you want to. I want to thank you all so very much for joining me today. I hope that this was just helpful in understanding, one, about diversity and what that looks like, but two, how to support your Black or even marginalized employees. Again, compassion and empathy go a long way, so do not forget that. That is the most important thing, because at the end of the day, we are all human and we all deserve to live our best lives. And so I hope you all live your best lives this week. Thank you again for joining. And that's going to conclude my webinar for today. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Tia. That was a fantastic presentation. I'm so thankful that you had the time to come speak to us today. Like I said at the beginning, this is recorded, so it will be posted to our website, hopefully as quickly as I can transcribe for anyone who wants to share it and view it again. And Tia, I'm hoping that once you're Dr. Tia, you can come back again and talk to us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Someday I'm going to see your book on a shelf and be like, oh, I know her.
Y'all are so kind. Thank you, everyone.